This is Robert Heights.
This is Kelly Broom.
Together, we are the
Wandering Colonel.
C-130 rolling down the strand. C-130 rolling down the strand. Airborne daddy gonna take a little trip. Airborne daddy gonna take a little trip.
So let's just say, there you are, out on patrol, wandering around the battlefield like you're wont to do, and bang!
Oh!
You get hit by a little
There's
piece
blood
of
on my shirt.
steelio that goes and penetrates you.
I am a casualty.
What do you need?
I need to be evacuated off the battlefield. We didn't do that very well back in the day. Like, you know, Revolutionary War, Civil War, you kind of fell where you fell. Unless you had a buddy to drag you back.
And they expect you to self-evacuate.
To a certain degree.
And you lose a major body part.
But we improved from there. From there we learned our lessons. In every single war we're learning lessons. Unfortunately, sometimes we relearn lessons. But
yeah, the worst thing, that your biggest challenge in a medevac situation is time.
absolutely, golden hour.
So you want to get there, get them out, and go. So Rob was a flight medic back in the day when he was younger and sprier. But he's very familiar with how it developed.
I still ride the hoist. That was fun.
First medevac was by the
World War II, actually.
in the CBI,
Yep.
China, Burma, India. In Burma, a Sikorsky R4.
Mm-hmm.
I do not even know why it was called an R4. If anybody knows,
Put it in the chat.
put it in the chat and let us know why it was called an R.
And while we're on that, if you like these, like, subscribe, all that other social media stuff that we don't do because we're old.
Yeah. So I wonder if the R, it couldn't have been rotary wing. Anyhow.
Could have been. Let us know. Was R rotary wing? It had to be. We're the Army. We don't come up with creative stuff.
I don't know. Maybe they, I don't know. There's
Anyway,
all sorts of interesting
made
little
by
letters.
Sikorsky. One of the fathers of, we don't cut that stuff out because again, we're old, we don't care. One of the fathers of modern rotary flight.
They still make a lot of helicopters.
Sikorsky. Yeah.
And
Well,
make
in
good
the company,
ones.
right? That bears
Yeah,
the same.
Sikorsky. It's not the same
He was
guy.
an actual guy, but
Yeah, he was like 60 in 1944, so I don't think he's with us anymore.
probably not.
But maybe his great-grandson is still...
His spirit is still with us.
Yes.
I felt him when I got on my aircraft.
Yeah. I don't want to
There
go
was
on
a
that.
Bill,
We're going to get demonetized if you go down that road. So the
Back
Army...
to the idea, we have casualties on the battlefield.
The Army wants to get you out as
short period
fast
of
as
time
possible.
to get that casualty from where he or she was injured back to some medical care. It's called the golden hour. And back in the day, we were trying to get better at it. Very first instance where we actually tried to move them, we did move them by air, was Burma, as Colonel Bloom said.
So the goal is to have your medical evacuation resources pushed forward as close as possible. So a lot of that is wheeled vehicles. If we have wheeled vehicles, yep. You put them on a wheeled vehicle, you can carry a lot more supplies, you can be a lot more flexible. But MEDEVAC has evolved to the point where the helicopters that are purpose-built to be MEDEVAC birds have a lot of capabilities in them. I guess we need to wander on over and see the birth, the fitful first steps, and as they got more and more refined up to the point where we are today.
Yeah, I don't think they have an R4 out there, but so if you all know, we're based in Texas, San Antonio, and at Fort Sam Houston, where the Aeromedical Museum, I guess, is.
Or I think it's just the medical U.S. military Medical Museum.
Yeah, they got the static displays. If you're ever in San Antonio, it's a good place to visit. They got some static displays. I think the earliest one was the Sioux, but we'll go over there. They got, pretty sure they got the Sioux, which is like the H-13 or something, and the Chickasaw, and then from there to Bellevue.
We'll have to Google them on the way.
All right.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Ruck up,
We're
baby.
pulling pitch.
Uh-oh.
It's aviation.
we've wandered over to the Army side.
Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio, Texas.
Green is good.
Green is always good.
So here we are. This is the,
Oh, you didn't mean money green? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
everything in the Army costs money green. This is the original MEDEVAC aircraft, and it was not purpose built. They had this airframe, and then when the Korean War popped off in June of 1950, they needed something to medevac people out. The faster you get people to the hospital, the more likely they are to survive. If you can get them there immediately, they're going to live longer.
So they just stuck this stuff on the skids.
And the max you could pick up was 2 people on the skids and 1 in the seat. But if you were ambitious and motivated, you could sit in your buddy's lap and the pilot could fly you out. Now, there is no co-pilot.
It's all about thrust. If it was overly hot, you weren't going to do that. But if you had enough bite from the rotor, then you can pick up more than the book says.
There is not a lot of horsepower on these engines.
Nope.
Looks like a large lawnmower engine.
Well, it's just a 6-cylinder engine. You know, if you look in the back of this aircraft, kind of looks like looking in the back of a Volkswagen Bug. Although the Bug only had 4, this has 6.
So you would fly into the airspace. Pilot was also the navigator, so he had a map in his lap, and this is not an all-weather bird. This is not a day and night bird.
You're
this
not
is
flying IFR?
daytime. Well, I guess you could, as long as
No,
your
you're not flying
instrument
IFR.
was
Right.
your compass in your hand.
You had Darth Vader with you using
Yeah.
the Force, or sorry, Darth the bad guy. You had what was the good guy? Luke Skywalker with you using the Force, then you could go IFR. Other than that, you're out of luck.
This thing was a lot of. You have fly-by-wire and you have fly-by-prayer, and this is fly-by-prayer.
Right.
I believe 13,000 of 18,000 people who were medevaced in the Korean War by air were medevaced using these aircraft.
Well, that's perfect. This is the H-13 Sioux.
13 times 1,000 equals the number of people they got out.
Right.
So imagine 13,000 people at a max average probably of 2, maybe 3 would be on board. But like Rob was saying, if it's a hot day, you probably aren't getting more than 2 on board the aircraft.
And it gets hot in Korea. It gets cold in Korea too,
Yeah.
but it gets hot in Korea.
Cold is better for that. But if it's cold, now you got a limited amount of distance you can cover, because you're going to get that guy frostbite. You're going to get other injuries are going to occur.
Well, they did pull heat. They pulled heat off the manifold of the engine to try and keep the patients warm, because, as you see, they're out in the elements, right? They're just stuck on the side of the helicopter. And these things didn't fly overly fast.
No. But still, cold is cold, and Korea can, it wasn't called the frozen chosen when they were fighting there for nothing.
Well, here's the thing. This was the advent of aeromedical evacuation, right? This was the first platform that we used for that purpose, and we saved a lot of lives. We talk a lot these days about how our casualties in the more modern worlds, the more modern wars, where our folks were losing a lot of limbs, but they still survived because of tourniquets and other things. This was an absolute innovation. We got soldiers off the battlefield from the battalion aid station very quickly back behind the lines to what's called a MASH. You've probably seen the sitcom. If you haven't, look it up. It's an awesomely funny show. Stands for Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. So you'd fly them from battalion aid to the MASH, and they would do their best to put them together very, very quickly, and then they'd further evac them back to a more established hospital.
So you also need to remember, helicopter really didn't get fielded. The US Army started fielding helicopters in 1944. Very, very basic. Also used in the Asian theater. There weren't very many of them, if any, used in the European theater. It's very helpful in the jungle. You can lower stuff by wire. That's not a big demand in Europe. So a lot of the helicopters that I think it was called the R-44, was one of the first ones, and it was used for medevac and getting individuals in and out of remote areas where you could not put in a landing strip. If you've got triple canopy, or you've got just huge trees, cutting them down, clearing it out, Takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a whole lot of manpower, and you just wouldn't have assets like that. So less than 6-7 years after the introduction of rotary wing aircraft, which is a helicopter, a rotary wing aircraft into the military, helicopters were a key part of how we did business in Korea. And from there, we got a little bit more modern. We're going to go wander on over to a little bit bigger bird.
Still piston driven though.
Still piston driven, and the outset of the conflict in Vietnam, the Vietnam War.
All right, we're out.
And here we are, wandering over to a big, fat, ugly bird.
It is not nearly as attractive as the Sioux was.
No, it does not.
This is the H-19, and it's called a
big, ugly...
a bug, a big, ugly bird. No, that'd be a bub.
A bub.
This is called the Chickasaw, I think. All the Army names their helicopters after
All helicopters.
Native Americans. So we started with the Sioux. This is the Chickasaw. Next generation of MEDEVAC. You can see here, there's no place that you can see, at least on camera, where the patients are. They're all inside. They would roll this door back here and bring the patients inside. You can't really see the front, but it opens up like a clamshell.
No luggage.
Not for putting luggage, not for putting anything in there, other than that's where the engine is. On the Sioux, the engine was behind the pilots and the flight crew and everything else. On the Chickasaw, the engine's up front. And it's a great big radial engine, like something you'd see on maybe the B-25 Mitchell or on the B-17, some of those larger Air Force bombers. But it sat up front, and the drive shaft went up through, or not through, between the two seats of the pilot and co-pilot.
So this is the next generation. This is what we kicked off in Vietnam with. How many people could this carry?
Ooh.
4, 6?
Yeah, I think it was at least 4. I don't know. I didn't do research on that.
Still not.
Look it up. Tell us in the chat. How many people how many patients could the Chickasaw carry? H-19.
I think field expedient, all it could.
Right.
But there's always a planning load. It's probably 3 to 4. It's a very large helicopter. This thing sits 12 feet tall, and it's very long. So it's at least, I'd say it's probably got 4 times the weight of the H-13 Sioux, and probably is bigger than the next helicopter we're going to talk about, the Iroquois.
What was the call sign?
Oh, this is where the name Dustoff began. They started calling MEDEVAC birds Dustoff. This is the time frame, early 60s, when we were developing the tactics, techniques, and procedures for doing MEDEVAC, and they started off by calling it Dustoff at that point in time.
You can see much more advanced aircraft. You can see actual steps so you can access the platform. Up there, that little thing that comes out to the side is called a PDOT tube. That's for your instruments. This had a lot more advanced instruments than the Sioux did, which we talked about, I think, on camera there. It had no instruments hardly at all. And it wasn't lighted. On the Sioux, the pilot had to use a flashlight if he was flying at night. That's not the case with this aircraft here. You can see cutouts for if you needed to rescue, that kind of thing. So a lot more advanced. We're getting helicopter flight is coming more into its own with this airframe and that era of flight.
Was not in the inventory very long, maybe a maximum of 10 years.
Right.
And this is, you can see this one's got wheels on it. The next helicopter we're going to talk about had skids. They did away with the wheels. We came back to wheels later on, but you could put wheels. On the next one, you could attach wheels to the skids to move it around. And you can see down here, it's got a little cradle. You hook that up, and you could drag the helicopter around on the ground with, you'd hook this up to a Jeep or some sort of tractor, move it around on the ground so that if you needed to move it to line it up. This one has 3 blades. It's a tri-rotor and a vertical stabilizer. In order to, the main reason why you have a vertical stabilizer, actually the only reason, is to keep the helicopter, if you don't have a vertical stabilizer, the helicopters are going to chase the blade. It's going to try to go as fast as the blade, so it zeroes it out. So
well, that's the tail rotor.
Yeah. The tail rotor.
Yeah, so on a helicopter, most modern all the helicopters has what's called it does have a vertical stabilizer. The tail rotor, there's another rotor that's oriented vertically on the back to keep it from counter rotating. There are some helicopters that have two main rotors that counter rotate, and you don't really need a tail rotor on that. But you still have a vertical stabilizer on these, because if your tail rotor goes out, your only chance of survival in a helicopter is you get forward thrust and you get enough airflow going past your vertical stabilizer, and you save the energy in the blade to when you get down near the ground, you do what's called an auto rotation. You pull as much energy out of that, as you're doing that, the body will counter rotate, but hopefully you get enough energy out of it where you pancake and don't die in the hole. Sorry.
No, I'm glad you straightened me out on that, because
But
I
so
know
yeah,
my uncle
helicopter's
was on
big shaft. It goes all the way back to the tail. That's spinning all the time, and that's a serious vulnerability on combat aircraft. So that's where they are typically, because here's the issue: the person trying to shoot at the helicopter typically aims at the helicopter. The problem is the helicopter's moving forward, so most of your shells impact further down the body, which is where your shaft is for your tail rotor, and that's a significant vulnerability part. On your modern aircraft, Black Hawks, Apaches, those types of things, that's armored to a certain degree. Those are made to withstand a lot of punishment. Blades on these were fairly strong. So the way you fly in a helicopter is the wings actually move, they rotate around. But you can see the structure up there in the middle in the hub. You can adjust by the collective the angle of that blade, creating a difference in the thrust. But the blades here are fairly strong on these aircraft. The more modern aircraft, your Apaches, Black Hawks, they have composite blades. So if they struck like a tree or something, the blade's just going to kind of explode. Whereas this, if you're striking a tree with this, it's going to cut through that tree pretty good before the blade actually comes apart. What else?
I think that's about it.
I think we're wandering on over to the next one.
Yes.
Shall we?
We shall wander from on.
Let's do it. We're out. All right, we are wandering on over to what most people call the Huey. This is the Bell Iroquois. It was developed by Bell, and it was called the Iroquois all over. It's known all over the world as just the simple Huey. Huey is a bit of a misnomer because Huey is a family of aircraft. The Huey Cobra is a Huey as well, but it's an attack aircraft. It's this aircraft scaled down. But this was the next step. From the H-19, we went to the Iroquois, which is known as the Huey. You can see here again, sliding door. Sorry, step in front of you. Sliding door that slid out of the way for us to load the patients. This aircraft could carry, in its normal configuration, 3 ambulatory litter patients, or more than that ambulatory. However, if you really needed in Moscow, you needed to transport a lot, then you could adjust the litters so they were running longitudinally down into what's called that heck hole. We called it something different than that, but so you get 6 total litter patients on a Huey if you needed to. The challenge is there's not a lot of space. You would load them where the heads were forward, and the medic would be in between them so he could monitor them, but there wasn't a lot of space to actually do any treatment. So typically this was more of a MEDEVAC when you have stabilized patients. It wasn't a battlefield deal. From the battlefield, you usually, if you're doing litters, you had it configured like you can't really see here, but the litters are straight perpendicular to the line of flight. What else? So the last 2 we talked about, the Sioux and the Chickasaw, were internal piston engines. This is actually a turbine. You have one engine up in the top. You can't really see, but you can see the cowling. There's a single engine in there, and it's a turbine. It's an axial flow turbine, which is a more modern engine that most all of our aircraft use these days. But in the Vietnam era, that was breaking technology. What else?
So we started off in Vietnam in UH-1 Bravos, UH-1Bs.
That's true.
This is a hotel model, a UH-1H.
And they were shorter. If you see them in the old films, the door was a lot smaller, and the fuselage, the body was a lot shorter.
And that's they went to a better engine. The Marine Corps still flies the UH-1. I think they're on the UH-1 Whiskey model now. They put twin engines in them. The Marines don't like flying single engine aircraft, so they have twin engine Hueys. And a
4-blade. Their main blade is a 4-bladed blade.
Yep, this is 2 blades. The first one we saw, the Sioux, it was a single blade. And then the Chickasaw was 3-blade, and now we're back to 2-blade. But these blades are a lot wider, have a lot more lift capability.
And it made the traditional whoop, 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 whoop that you think of as from a helicopter.
And now we've also gone to skids. We started with skids on the Sioux, transitioned to wheels on the Chickasaw, and then when we got to the Iroquois, the UH-1H, we've got skids again. Skids give you advantages and disadvantages. It's harder to move them when they're on the ground, but they can kind of land on anything, and they won't settle in as much as a aircraft on wheels will settle in. If you're going to land a helicopter with wheels and you're not sure how, let's say, solid the ground is, you'll come to a hover and everybody has to exit the aircraft without them actually putting down on the ground. They'll just hover and you exit the aircraft, and then you move on from there.
Skids also allow you to do what's called a run-on landing, where you come in as a traditional aircraft would, and you land on the ground and you slide to a stop, because the skids will allow you to do that. Whereas wheels, if you did that, you'd probably tear your landing gear off.
When I first started off in an airborne unit, my first jump after airborne school was on a UH-1H. This is not a high-performance aircraft. It's not a fixed-wing aircraft. So the forward throw when you're jumping is not as great. So in airborne school, all they tell you is you're going to count to 4. You count to 4, you count to 4, you count to 4. My first jump, I get there and they start counting to 6. And I was immediately apprehensive because I figured I'd forgotten everything I once knew. And I asked somebody, I thought we counted to 4, and I got explained to. The forward throw is not as great, the parachute does not deploy as fast. So you count to 6 instead of 4. If you count to 6 and you don't have an opening shock, you check around, check your fellow jumpers for rate of descent, and decide whether or not you want to throw a reserve. These remained in the inventory until the early 90s, and I believe they were all really done from what we would call maneuver elements. We used them for training, for initial flight training for pilots. Well after that, out at what is now Fort Novacell, it was Fort Rucker back in the day.
I was still flying on this as a flight medic. And when I went to OCS in '99, still flying on a Huey in the Army National Guard. As a flight medic. So they were out of the active duty inventory. Guard still had them for some years to come. Now they're all gone from even the National Guard. The National Guard has Black Ops because we needed to standardize the inventory. When the National Guard would deploy, the whole logistics chain was not set up to supply parts and things like that for the Huey. Although the Huey is very well suited for a National Guard mission. I could land this bird on any state highway anywhere in the United States, just because the dimensions of the highway, we knew as an air crew, as long as I had a state highway, I could land this bird, which you can't do that with a Black Hawk. Black Hawk's much larger, it just won't fit in that space.
Now, these were still flying when I was in Afghanistan, 03, 04.
Yep.
Marines. I looked up and saw AH-1 and UH-1 Marine Corps helicopters flying over the battlefield, and remember thinking to myself, hey, those are the helicopters from my father's war, and what the hell are they doing here? But
you'll still see civilian models of these. The Bell 212 is out there. It's a 4-bladed, 2-engine, just like the Marines are flying. Well, it's just like the Marines are flying. It's a 2-engine, 4-bladed, basic airframe, similar to what the Marines are flying.
And you can retrofit them.
Absolutely.
You can upgrade the instrument package. The pilots and the co-pilot does have an armored seat. They sit on steel. The skin of these aircraft do not stop much. A hard rain, but not anything made of metal traveling at supersonic speeds. It's going to go right through them. There's armoring around the engine. There's armoring around the pilot, because if the pilot goes down, everybody goes down.
Right.
But these are not hardened aircraft. Helicopters try to get all their power into their engines so they can keep flying. The only exception to that is probably attack helicopters. Attack helicopters are armored and can take a lot of punishment. Hueys, all utility helicopters. A UH is a utility helicopter. They are not designed to take a licking.
But even MEDEVAC crews trained to evacuate out their pilots. So even though the pilot here, as Kelly said, had armoring around the seat, there are special releases from the back where you can lay that seat back, pull the pilot and or co-pilot, whichever side you're dealing with. The pilot was on the left-hand side traditionally, then you had a co-pilot on the right-hand side. We could pull that person out, hop over, get up front, and get on the controls to help whichever surviving flight crew member was there. You can see here it says the steps. These are just spring-loaded to keep your aerodynamics, but that's where you put your feet in to step to get up on the deck to work on the superstructure of the engine. I don't know if you can get in the scene, but there's these cowlings here would fold out. You'd open this up when you started the engine, just in case they were looking for a fire or leaks. But this whole cowling would swing back, and you had a work platform here to get to the engine. So it's a lot easier to work on than some of the other aircraft. Of course, the Chickasaw, the whole cowl opened up, the nose opened up, so you can get to that engine pretty well as well. But the old Sioux, you had to kind of crawl in to get to the engine.
By the time we were flying this, we had decades of experience on designing helicopters and a lot of experience.
This is probably the best well-known Army helicopter of anywhere. Everybody can see and recognize the Bell Huey. If you recognize any Army aircraft, you're going to recognize the Bell Huey, just because they were ubiquitous throughout the whole Vietnam War and then post-war era. And as Kelly said, we flew them in the late 90s, early thousands. All right.
Let's wander over to a little more modern.
Let's wander over.
Here we go.
We're out.
Ironically, first unit I ever served in was Bravo Company, 1-4 Infantry, and we were the Black Hawk Company.
Did you have Black Hawks?
No. We were named after the Black Hawk tribe. So we had 4 companies: Apaches, Black Hawks, Comanche, and Dakotas.
And you didn't have Dakotas, Black Hawks?
We named the companies after Indian tribes we had fought in our history.
I see. Actually,
kind
all
of
of those,
not quite as commemorative as, hey, we're naming it after a Native American.
All of those have Army aircraft named after them. The Comanche was a prototype. It flew. It never flew as a production model.
We saw one of those at
we did, yeah.
Fort Campbell.
Dakotas, Black Hawks, and what was the other one?
Apaches. We
all
fly
Apaches 3 of those
today.
Were flying models in the Army's inventory. Okay, we're here to talk about the Black Hawk.
UH-60.
UH-60.
Formerly referred to as the Crash Hawk when it was having really, really bad days.
Long dart, yeah. Yeah, when it was first began flying, there was a problem with the horizontal stabilizer in the back here. The servo would somehow think it was 180 degrees out, like a split second, so then it would flip like that and push the aircraft into the ground. But here's the thing. I feel like it got a bad rap because anytime you are working on a prototype aircraft, you're going to have issues, growing pains, and I know it's tragic to just boil it down to that. But here's the thing: when we were developing the Huey Iroquois, we've already talked about that. We'll talk at some point about the Huey Cobra. All of those airframes, they crashed as well. They just did it in a war zone, so nobody really heard about it. This aircraft was developed during peacetime, and so yes, their crashes were very well publicized and very well known. Just like that of another airframe we'll eventually talk about, we've not done one yet, is the, oh darn, I just drew a blank. The Bell Vertical Lift Osprey.
The V-22?
Yeah, the V-22 Osprey. Just had a flyover we were at Arlington for a national ceremony.
And
interred a Vietnam, so POWMIA, still out there. We're still looking for remains. Literally, they just found and recovered the remains of a friend of mine's brother was interned in Arlington, and they did a flyover with the V-22 Osprey. So had some issues with that airframe as well. But very solid, very...
that was very mildly put. It didn't have some issues.
Very stable.
It flew into the Potomac River
airplane.
in front of Congress.
These days, very stable airframe. Black Hawk can carry, again, typically you're carrying only about 3, but you could get more into this. Litter patients, the early Blackhawks had a carousel in the middle. You would load your patients in from the side and it would swing around this way, so then the patients were oriented in the line of flight, and of course the medic would sit between them to treat them in flight. These would have onboard oxygen. They do use, we didn't talk about that with the Iroquois. It did pull manifold heat. It wasn't manifold heat because it's a turbine, but they did pull compressor heat off, or compressor air off of the compressor to heat the area and keep patients warm. This one not only does that, but has air condition, and the MEDEVAC versions had oxygen on board, had their own oxygen systems to provide oxygen for the patients. What else? Top speed on this one, a lot more than Huey. Huey is 100 and something, I think. Well, really, the operational speed was only around 90 something. This is a lot higher than that. And that's the reason the Army went away from the Iroquois, the old Hueys, to the Blackhawks, because their top speed, their operational speed, in-flight speed is a lot faster, and you could cover a lot more ground. And today's battlefield is a lot more large. It's a lot longer distances than the traditional battlefield.
Getting there fastest with the mostest is always fun.
Exactly.
And it's also better.
Yeah.
Still not the fastest helicopter in the inventory. That'd be a Chinook.
Well, yeah, true.
We won't look at one of those today.
Fastest MEDEVAC, though. Dual engine. You have one engine here, one engine on the other side of the aircraft. You can't really see them, but they are positioned on either side of the aircraft for survivability, because this airframe is not just a MEDEVAC. Right, with the Sioux and even the Chickasaw was more of a, well, I guess the Chickasaw was used operationally as well, but this airframe, this platform, is not just a MEDEVAC. It's a multi-purpose. It is used to transport supplies. It is used to transport troops into battle, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
so
there's no such thing as a helicopter that is designed solely for only MEDEVAC use.
Right.
They're all UHs. They're all utility helicopters, which means they're like a utility infielder. They play any position.
Well, except the AH is the attacks, but there are attack airframes.
Well, that's an AH. These are UHs.
Right.
So, and then you have OHs for observation.
The hub you can see up at the rotor, a lot more complex, a lot larger, because this aircraft can do a lot more things. This aircraft is actually, I think it's rated aerobatic, which is the others have not been. So much more modern platform.
It's the first helicopter I've ever noticed that has the canted
that's true.
stabilizer.
If it's not on film, you can see pictures of this. The rear rotor is canted at about, I don't know, maybe is that a 15-degree angle? We could look it up. Look it up, put it in the chat. Tell me what the angle on that is. They did that for a very specific reason. When you look at the blades on this helicopter, it goes out and then the end shifts a bit. Both that and the cant of the rear rotor is designed to minimize the noise signature. With the Huey and still the modern Chinook, you hear that traditional whoop, 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 whoop. That travels a long way. That noise signature.
Especially in humid air.
Yeah, exactly. That noise signature just gives it away. With these aircraft, they're a lot quieter because of that, the rotor tip cant and the angle of the rear rotor and how that air interacts with each other. So good catch.
These are also large. For a utility helicopter, they are large. I think you can, 12 people, if you really cram them in, sitting in there, not patients. You can really, you've got a crew chief in each door. You can mount, if it's not configured for a MEDEVAC, if it's not flying with the Red Cross on it, you can put machine guns in each door, 50 cals or M240s, 7.62.
Or your miniguns.
Machine guns, or miniguns.
Yeah, you can put a minigun on it.
They also, these helicopters, you can put pods on it. They'll have, they'll stick out here. Though you can put fuel pods on it. You can actually put weapons pods on it where they can launch Hellfire missiles and be controlled by other aircraft.
You've probably seen pictures of that where it's like a little mini wing that comes off out here with a structure that comes across to support it.
Big fuel pods, which gives them a lot of range. And then the special operations version are in-flight refuelable.
Yep, there's a boom, comes out the nose.
Big,
it's a big boom that sticks out the nose.
Looks like a straw, so it can feed itself fuel. Refueling in flight with rotary wing aircraft is
tricky,
special, because you're not doing it with a boom like the Air Force uses a boom. You're doing it with a big giant shuttlecock on the end of a gas
hose, right.
gas hose,
Right.
and it hangs down and it's moving around. And helicopters beat the air into submission. There's not a whole lot of elegancy with a helicopter flight. They are beating the air into submission.
Elegancy?
So all sorts of moving
word?
air. It's not elegant.
Tell me in the chat, is that a word?
What?
Elegancy.
There's not
Go
a lot
ahead.
of elegancy.
Go ahead.
Ask George H. Bush.
I feel like it's elegance or elegance. I don't elegant.
Well,
Go ahead.
today it's elegancy.
Chat me up. Tell me. Don't tell me.
So
tell me I come find you.
They are very, very functional, very, very useful. It can do a lot of damage to bad guys and can keep a lot of good guys alive. So
They look elegant when they fly. I'm just saying.
I'm telling. When you walk underneath them, you know you are underneath a helicopter that
That's true.
is preparing for.
A lot more rotor wash comes out of this than the old Bell Huey, the guy that I flew on for years. There's a lot of rotor wash that comes out of that, but a lot more out of this one. And because you have what's called a fully articulating hub, the rotors can dip down very close to the ground. So never approach these. Well, never approach any helicopter until you're motioned to do so. But entering or exiting that area, there's a reason to bend down, because the blades, unlike the Bell Iroquois, the Huey, the blades aren't going to come down near your head. With this one, they certainly could. They absolutely could.
I'm going to tell you, even when they're sitting still, I always feel the urge to duck down.
Nobody wants to lose your head around the helicopter.
Yeah, it can be a bad thing. So the Navy flies these. The Navy calls them Seahawks.
Seahawks, yep.
They break the tail. The tail is actually is hinged and it can fold. That's to put them aboard.
But you'll notice on their version, the tail wheel is not back there on the end of the empennage. It's up here at the end of the body, the actual fuselage portion. Because like he said, if you disconnect the tail and swing it around, if your wheel's on the end of it, now you've changed how you can move it. A lot larger, as he said. I put 6 of these inside the hold of a C-5 when we deployed out for roving sands back in the day. It's an exercise. We put our Hueys on board. They flew us out there in a C-5. Can't do that with a Black Hawk. You're not fitting 6 of these in the hold of a C-5. What else?
They drink a lot of gas.
They do.
You can external sling load quite a bit of weight. I've seen these pick up a Humvee.
Yep.
And Humvees are not light. They cannot pick up as much as a Chinook. I don't think
No.
you can outweigh.
No.
You can put too much stuff on a Chinook. They can carry everything, but you can carry a lot of weight on a Black Hawk.
And if you're not talking about the MEDEVAC verb, you can fast rope out of it. There's some of them are set up. Even the MEDEVACs are set up with a hoist, and typically it is a MEDEVAC set up with a hoist. Yeah, a lot of versatility. Went back to the wheels. I think we've already said
Yeah,
that. You can
these are
notice they
wheeled.
have wheels, but you're not doing a run-on landing with these anyway. You're coming in, slooping, flaring quickly. If you're doing operational and kicking people out, so you're not really having to come in and land like
And
the Huey did.
you may not even land. They may, while you're in hover,
Right.
you may get out, and then the pilot's taking off.
Your soft insertions, they come down and they slow to a hover. We duck out, and then they never touch the ground. You can see the cowlings on this. This is designed to control the heat coming out to make it a lower heat signature. Typically an operational bird, sitting above there is an IR diffuser. That's been taken off for this because it's a static display, of course. And the chaff dispenser would be behind me here. That's been taken off because it's a static display.
Well, these also have a safety feature that will cut wire.
Yep, wire cut. You probably can't see it from that
Up
angle,
on the
though.
top, you see a little thing, looks like a knife blade sitting at about a 45-degree angle. If it's flying through a telephone wire, something
Accidentally.
not the size of a power line, it can cut wire using the forward speed, the kinetic energy of the aircraft. It'll cut the wire because if you have wire go in there and it snags and it gets caught up in here, wrapping wire around a helicopter blade is on your list of things you do not want to do.
Still 4 crew. Ever since probably the modern Huey, I don't think they had a full queue. They didn't have a a medic assigned to the Chickasaw. But since the days of the Iroquois, the UH-1, up until now, the Army standard is pilot, co-pilot, crew chief, and a flight medic. Crew of 4.
That's it.
All right.
That's the Black Hawk. This is in the inventory and is going to be in the inventory for quite a while.
Well, they just awarded the contract for its replacement, actually, but it's going to be years before it's
It'll be years
fielded.
before they can field enough of them to replace all of them.
Right.
Because
Well,
these are not cheap birds. These
It's
are
years before the first one flies.
$17 million a copy. Very expensive to maintain compared to previous aircraft, but you get a
still-
lot more technology.
Still set up for, I don't know if you can get it in the screen here or see it in the screen, but still set up with the civilian needs to fly. In the aviation world, you have to have position lights. Here you can see the green light on the right. Green's always on the right. If you see red on the right, that means it's returning. It's coming at you. So the red's always on the left, green's on the right. And then you have the lights here on the base and the tail that blink. So, yeah. What else, man?
In combat, you can turn those off.
Absolutely. And we do.
But if you're flying in the States, they're going to be turned on.
Typically,
Unless
when these
trained.
are deployed, all lights are off and you're under night vision goggles. We're crew of 4, all 4 of us will be on night vision goggles, and there were drills to run for each of our goggles to go down or lose. We crossed a ridge in North Georgia one night, late, just a really super dark night. I think the lume was less than 10%, and all of our goggles started shutting down. We performed an emergency RTB, and we turned around, climbed, went across the same ridge, and went home because we had no idea. We just couldn't see a thing.
If you can't see either with instruments or visually, you're going to die. And that's about it. So that's the Black Hawk.
Started from the Sioux all the way up to modern day.
We're not the only country that flies these.
That's true.
They're flown by a lot of our allies. It's not a very inexpensive helicopter to operate, so some of our less affluent partners don't fly them. But it is a very, very capable aircraft. And
Cool thing about this airframe, it has an auto hover feature. So, like your cruise control in your car, one of the most difficult things to do as a pilot is to hover one spot. Well, on this aircraft, this airframe, he has a button where he can sit, it's kind of like your cruise control, autopilot type of deal, but it's specifically designed to hover, and he can take his hands off the controls, and it's like auto drive.
make it easy. Okay.
We good?
We are done wandering around the Black Hawk, and now we're going to wander on back to the studio.
All right. We're out.
Thank you much. Hope to get you all to like and subscribe, and please send your comments and any information that you think you'd like to have us share. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you as we wander.
Sounds good.